Hi, everybody. I know it's been about like 2 weeks since we last met, and then I know last week we ended up having to the class got canceled. So I know it's been a while. I'm thinking what we'll do. Um, I have to try to remember where we last ended off with time because I know normally with time I have it as a whole one group, but we kind of like staggered it a bit. So I know we did the days of the week. So I figured we'll review with that again. I think that's a good start. And then trying to think of anything else I think we'll just go with that and then we'll kind of go on ahead. And if there's any signs you need me to sign again, kind of review, we can go through that as well. If you guys can't see me, also please let me know. I know I'm kind of at a weird angle. I can never, when I'm at my parents' house, I can never get the right like height of anything. So, all right, well, wait, let me pin myself first. And then they changed this whole thing on me, and it's gonna take me like a hot minute to get this figured out. There we go. Okay. So for our days of the week, we're gonna start with if you remember, I like to always kind of start with my Mondays and go that way. So we had Monday. Monday's gonna be that M, and then you're gonna like have the M facing you, and then you go in a circle motion. Monday. Then we had Tuesday, which was a T, and then the same position. Tuesday. Wednesday was a W, same position, circular. Then Thursday is, I love how I always say it's an H, but really it is a U because it's just kind of a weird in-betweener, but it's going to be the two fingers together, kind of slightly angled. Thursday. And then Friday was our F. Flip it and then circle. Friday. Now, you don't have to do the whole showing and then turning it. You can just start naturally with like it backwards. I just always like to show the process so you know where I'm starting. So, Friday. Then our Saturday, which is an S. Flip again, circle motion. Saturday. And then if you guys remember, our Sunday has two ways. You can do one, which is you're going to have kind of open hands and you're going to be like, I always think of Karate Kid with wax on, wax off. I don't know why that's what it is, but that's come to my mind every time. So Sunday, and then the other one is Sunday. So you have your hand across. Kind of like you're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, but you pat. You're not really like just leaving it there. You pat it. Sunday. Okay. So what we'll do now is we're going to start with some more of our time signs. I'm zooming in so I can see my whole little list. So the first sign that I'm going to show you guys is the sign for time itself, which, and Miss Katie, if I'm starting to go through the list that we've already done, please let me know. It has been like 2 weeks and there's been a lot happening. So if I start to repeat myself, please let me know. So, like I said, we have time. Oh,
I think you're good because I think we reached a logical stopping point. So I think like we had done numbers, we had just started time. I think you're good from here to stay with
okay.
the list that you have. I don't think it's very different.
Yeah, I
Okay,
recall us
good.
doing days of the week and very basic beginnings of time. But yeah, we had only done days
Yeah.
of the week as far as I recall.
Perfect. Okay, good. I was sitting here going, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through this whole list and everyone's going to be like, we already know this. So that's why I was like, no, I need to check myself. Okay, good. So back what I was saying. So the first sign we're going to do is time. So time is going to be just tapping on like your wrist. I always think about like, this is exactly what we do every time we're trying to be like, it's time to go, that kind of motion, time. Then we have second. So second is going to be, it's not as commonly used. I don't see this one very often. But this is the sign you would do. So you're going to have your non-dominant hand sideways. Your dominant hand's going to be in a pointer finger. You're going to have your pointer finger on top of your non-dominant hand like this, and very small, like you're just going to move your hand back and forth, like super small. You don't want to go too big. You just do it's like so little. Very tiny. Seconds. I don't, again, like I said, I don't really see that one often, but that is the sign for seconds. I think sometimes people will do is like seconds. They'll go like SEC, that kind of thing, but this is the actual sign for seconds. Very tiny. Okay. The next one is minute. There are two ways you can do minute. One of them is more, I see more like commonly used, like in practice, like as you're communicating with someone. The other one's more like I guess the official way, but it's not always as often used. Okay. So the first one is going to be that same position. So non-dominant sideways. Dominant's a pointer finger, same position. And now you're going to make those big movements, minutes or minute. Now this one I don't see often. I'm going to be real with you. Okay. The one I see more often is it's going to be both your fingers are, hey, I cannot talk today, guys. I am so sorry. Do not know what's up with this. You're going to have both pointer fingers, and you're going to have your non-dominant pointer finger go at the base of your pointer finger, your dominant hand, and you're going to go minute, minute, minute. So for example, if you were going to say something like 5 minutes, you would do 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Like the open of the hem, 5 minutes. This one, so I think the reason this one's used more often is because if you think about when we talk about minutes in a conversation, typically it's, oh, we have 5 more minutes left. It was 5 minutes ago. It's very, like, it's not just talking about the general minute itself. It's talking about a specific number. And that's where that little flip comes in. Like, we'll do 5 minutes left. You have 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes ago, that kind of thing. So that's where I feel like the difference is, where this is just talking about the general minutes itself. This is talking about the actual like timing, like number wise, if that makes sense. It gets a little complicated trying to explain things like that. Okay. The next one is hour. So for hour, we're going to have our non-dominant again, that same position, same with the pointer finger. And now this one, you are going to make a circular motion. It's kind of like your hand, like the actual fist makes the circle motion. Hour. Now, people have asked me before if it matters which direction you go. And really, it's not like going to be the end of the world if you did this or like the motion off like the wrong way, because again, it's the concept of it. I typically always go out like this direction. I think my way is I visually see it like here's here's the clock, and I can like see it going in my, like looking at it from my view, it looks like it's going the correct way. But again, it's not something that like it's going to make or break this. So
Question on like the orientation of your hands. Are you just doing it like this to show us how it's done? Like, are we doing it sideways? Okay. Just making sure. You're muted.
I don't know how I got muted. I'm so glad that a little like thing pops up right as it says it. But yes, no, I was saying you're picking up, because yeah, you don't typically make it this awkward, like sticking out. You have it kind of sideways, this sort of like, you want to think when you're signing, it has to feel comfortable. So if you're like this and you're like, this is really weird and awkward, most likely it's supposed to be in a different position. But yeah, so hour. With this as well, like I did for the minutes, you do the same thing for hours. So for example, if you were saying 4 hours, you want that kind of number, you would just have the 4 and you go the hours, 4 hours. Now, if it's like a big number, I'm trying to think like 50 hours or something like that, you would just do 50 and then do the 1 hour, 50 hours, that sort of thing. But most of the time you can get about, I say about 10 hours. I mean, maybe 11. I'm trying to think. I think if it has to get where you have to make the numbers separate, like how we have like 12 and 13 is fine, but like 22, those sort of things, that's when I would start to do the number here and then add that hour, if that makes sense. You can also do the same thing anyways if you wanted to just do 5 hours. That also it works as well. That is there's not really much of like a, oh, this is right or wrong sort of way. It's just a matter of preference. Okay, let's do day and then we'll go back through the ones we did. So day is going to have your non-dominant arm go across. Your dominant arm is going to be in this kind of like pointer finger at the top. Sometimes I'll admit, sometimes I do make it look more like a D. Either way works. I think this one with the D is a little bit more like signing exact English, but still works in its sense. So you'll have it in this position and you're going to have your hand go down. Day. Day. And this is just for the concept of day. There are different signs for all day, today, yesterday, those, they will have different ones. We'll do those in a minute. Okay, so this is just our day. Okay, let's go back. So we had time. So we had our little time, which was time. Then we had second, which was the itty bitty little moving finger back and forth. Second. Then we had minute. So the first way, which was minute, minute, and then minute, minute. For those who just joined, it's pretty much like you're flicking your hand like this, like little whip. Minute. Then we had hour, which was again that same position, circular motion, hour. And then day. 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 Okay. So we're gonna stay kind of around day for a minute, and we're gonna look at the 4 different ways of days. So we'll do today, tomorrow, yesterday, and all day. Okay. Now we're gonna start with our today. So today is, well, actually, I'm gonna add 5. Sorry. Today and now. That's what I wanted to add. So today is going to be, you're going to have these 2 Y's. You're going to have them facing up. So like palms up. And you're going to bounce them today. And it's important that you do make sure you bounce this at least like twice, not just one time. So today, 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 today. All right. The next one we're going to do is now. Now is going to be exact same position as today, but now it's one time. Now. I like to think of this one. This is how I always remembered it, is whenever I think about the fact of like when you get in trouble and your parents call you and they're like, you get over here now. And it's got like that very final tone. I think now, like you just like, it's slamming, like it's now. That's the way I think of now every time. It's just one time. They're not saying today where it's like bouncing, oh, just whatever. No, it's now. That's just the way I think of it. If you guys are like, that does not help me, totally just let it go in one ear, out the other. All right. Our next one is going to be yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So yesterday, there are 2 ways you can do it. Same sign, but slight difference, okay? Not too complicated though. So you're gonna have like an A with your thumb. It's gonna go at the corner of your mouth. And you're gonna go back to your ear. Yesterday. 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 The other way you do it is a Y. So you have the pinky out and you do the same thing. So corner of your mouth, back to your ear. Yesterday. So this one, I think we talked about it in the second class about the difference between ASL and C. So I'm not going to go too deep in it again, but this is kind of where you can see it in play. This is more the ASL version of yesterday. And then this is the more C. So it's got the Y to showing it's more like it's like specified. Sometimes you'll notice that with signs is they'll have almost the letter of it involved. It is the same thing like when I do the D up here for day instead of just a fist in day. That can be where it's a little bit, that signing C, where it's signing exact English, is where it had those letters to help. It helps clarify for more of that English base. Sometimes it does even still get applied more in ASL. Like for example, yesterday, I see this one a lot more than this one. And so I do this one because of that. I remember when I first was learning ASL, I did this one. I was very stubborn. I was like, yes, this is yesterday. And then I kept being surrounded by children and coworkers who kept putting out their pinky. And I was like, oh, and so I suddenly noticed that I now do yesterday. So, okay. Our next one is going to be tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be, again, that sort of A position. Thumb's going to go again at the corner of your mouth. And you're going to bring it forward. Tomorrow. 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 All right. Then, yes.
We have several signs right around here, right? I feel like doing the Y is also really helpful just because it's like peach and girl are right here, and it
Oh,
seems
yeah,
like it
they
would be
are.
easy to get confused. It seems like apple is that, or like this is that,
Apple.
like there's
It
just a
could
lot of
really
stuff
be
going on right there. So making the Y would just, yeah, clarify.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of signs that will do that. The biggest one, and I think we'll get into this one a little bit, is the sign for like group and like any kind of group of people. There's just a generalized sign for it, but then there are specified signs with it, which I actually prefer to use. Those are ones I do typically use. I try to be more of that ASL, the true nature of ASL, but I still will do a few signing exact English ones just because it does help that clarification. And as a person who did not grow up knowing ASL as her primary language and having English as it's still a little bit of that's going to influence over. So that's also why I think this one does help a lot with that yesterday. I agree. Okay, so our last one of this little 5 group is all day. So all day, we're going to kind of go back in that day position. This time, instead of having your hand and a pointer finger, it's going to be open. And you go all day, all day, all day, all day. Okay, let's go back through these 5, and then I'm going to talk about something. It's about the time and how you can understand the aspect of past, present, and future. Okay, so we had today. Excuse me, I'm gonna have all these hiccups. Today, today. And remember, this one you have the bouncing with. Today, today. Then we had now, now. One time. Now. Then we had yesterday. So yesterday or yesterday. Yesterday. Make sure it's your thumb. There you go. Yeah. If you have it like this, I think they'll think you're talking about it like a phone. That's why I was like, I want to make sure you have your thumb sticking out for that one yesterday. Then we had tomorrow. So the thumb in the corner of your mouth again and bring it forward. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. And then our final one, which was all day. All day. All day. Okay. So now that we have those few signs, I think it will help apply when I explain this better. I think you guys will make connections easier on it. So when talking about past, present, or future tense of any kind of thing, it's always going to be, you know how we have ed or it will be tomorrow, those kinds of things that we use in English that help determine if it's past, present, or future. In ASL, we actually don't have those like ed. We don't add the ed at the end or anything like that. What we do is it's basically a specific like direction. So I always like to say visualize being on a timeline. And so everything in front of you is going to be future. Sorry, far in front of you is future. Anything happening around your body is present. And then anything that's in the past is going to be behind you. So if you notice for our yesterday, we start here at the air quote present and we go back. And we're not going all the way back awkwardly behind our shoulders, but we are making that backwards motion of we are going to the back in the past. And then it's the same thing for today and now. If you notice, we do it here. We're not moving forward, backwards, anything. We are staying right in this position today and now. And then for our tomorrow, if you remember, it starts here at present and then it goes forward. Now, it doesn't have to go a specific distance, but still moving that forward movement means that it's going to be in the future. So that is how past, present, and future is applied in ASL. It's not really like you have to add a new sign or anything. It's a specific motion that is applied. I personally think it's really cool. I love that because it's so, at least for me, it's very visual, like knowing, okay, we're talking about something that's actually in the future, or we're talking about something that's in the past, and you don't have to worry about those sometimes those very fancy linking verbs or the helping verbs that get a little bit confusing sometimes. It's just very basic. You understand it's in the front, it's in the back. So you'll notice that as we do a few of these other signs. So now that we did all of our days, we're going to put days over here, and we're now going to come on to our weeks, then months, and then years. All right. We'll just kind of break it up into like little 3 groups. So let's focus on our week. So the sign for week is you're going to have your non-dominant palm up. Your dominant's going to be in that pointer finger again. and you're going to slide it across. Week. 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 Excuse me. This is another one where you can apply for numbers. So if you're talking about 3 weeks, you do 3 and you slide it across 3 weeks. 3 weeks. You still can also do the 3 and then do the 1 across. That also will still mean 3 weeks. But I like how it kind of embeds together. I think that's kind of cool. Okay. So if we are talking about last week, okay, we're going to have that palm up again. We're going to have our pointer finger in the same position. We're going to go across, and then you're going to loop and point backwards. Last week. See like how I'm turning it almost? Last week. Last week. So you see, again, it's pointing in the past because it was happening in the past. Last week. Last week. Okay. Now, next week, I'm going to show you the one way to do it, and then there's another way to do it that I will admit I have a very bad habit of doing. I've been caught more than once saying, oh, it's this one, and then signing this one later. So I'm going to show you guys both. The first one for next week is going to be palm up, same position with the pointer finger. You're going to slide it across and then curve forward. Next week. Next week. Next week. The one I do now, and it's because of being at school and being around kids and coworkers who sign it. That's why. But I still see both quite equally. Okay. The one I do is you do the same pointer finger, but you start at the fingertips instead of the base. You go across and go under and out. Next week. Next week. I know it's very weird. If you're like, that is so confusing, do not do this one. I promise no one's going to judge you or question you. This one is just now a habit for me. I got caught emphasizing this one so much. I mean, it wasn't a bad one. It was just I kept saying this next week. And then whenever at the end of class, when I say, I'll see you guys next week, I went next week and someone was like, wait a minute, what just happened? We learned next week. And I was like, so there's 2 ways, guys. So I just like to always say that one. So you're not thinking like, I'm not just signing wrong or telling y'all wrong. No, there are 2 ways.
So
Next
question.
week. Yes.
So is it slide and then under, or is it just under? Like
it's gonna be like slide and then under. Yeah.
Okay.
Very fluid. So it's not like you go across and then under. It's like you keep moving. You don't ever stop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week or next week. Okay. Let's review those 3. I'm going to have you guys just do next week with the one forward because I know this one can get really tricky. We're just going to have the next week this one. So don't worry too much about having this one. Even if I sign it, don't worry about it. You guys just keep doing this one. Okay. I see your face. I see that. You were questioning. You're like, what is going on right now? Okay. Let's do our first one, which was week. So we had week. Then let's do week once more, week. And then we had last week. So week and then back. And then next week, week and forward. Next week. You're still good. You know what? If you want to do this one, go for it. I promise. Either way, she is stubborn. I can see it. She's like, no, I practiced. I had to get this one right. And now I have to do it this way. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I just don't want to stress anyone out if they're like, I can't get this one. You do whatever you're comfortable with.
It does look very natural when you do it. So like it looks like
it does. And that's the problem. It's like that one. I love that. It's the fact of learning this one for so long and then being like, this one came real natural. So
because I've seen somebody do this. And so I was like, okay, well, just
that's why you love it. You're like, oh, I've seen it. I know what it means now. I do the same thing. Trust me. The minute I see a way a sign is done, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's how I'm doing it. Even if it's like not like the exact same as like others, I'm like, no, that's it. That's always going to be it for me. Okay. Now let's do our months. Okay. So we're going to do kind of our 3 again. Month is going to be, I always like to bear with me. It is a very awkward one to show in the sense of trying to explain it through Zoom. So yeah. Okay. Miss Katie, I saw you make a face, and I was like, oh no, is she judging me?
No, I just can't remember what month is. So
it's just one
you
of
know
those.
what? Quite honestly, I would finger spell it because a lot of the time signs confuse me. Like even after so many sessions, it's just unless I don't know what it is. It's just this is the hardest one for me.
Time does take a minute. It's one of those ones where you really have to practice it and really get it down. And like I remember even in class, like that one took forever to get through. So yeah, totally get it. So for month, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have 2 pointer fingers. Your non-dominant hand is gonna turn sideways like this. Wait, nope, I did it wrong. Sorry. Your non-dominant hand's gonna stay. Your dominant hand is gonna turn like this. And you're gonna brush it on the back of your hand. So like the pointer finger on the back. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I hate this one. This is why I forgot it because it
Yeah.
just gives me nightmares.
Look, I did the same thing. Okay. Like I took 3 years of this, of at least 3 years. But I remember for the first 2 years, I was like, no, month. I just stare at my hands doing a little dance like this because I can't get it right. So your non-dominant is going to stay with the pointer finger pointing away. Your dominant is going to be turning sideways like this and going on the back of your hand. Yeah. Month. 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 If you guys are like, this one is weird, it's, yeah, trust me. That one's, I think, one of the hardest ones to like memorize because it's just like your hands, you stare at your hands because they both are turned in different positions. So, month. Month. Okay. For last month, what you're going to do is you're going to have that same position. You're going to go month and then back. Last month. You can do like, basically it's like you're going down and then you curve out to the back. Last month. Like, let me see. Let me pull back. Last month. You see, I'm almost making like that U shape. Last month. So I still go down and curve back. Last month. This is, again, I think month, all of the signs for month are some of the most awkward, hard ones to do. So if you guys are like struggling, it's okay. I promise. This one is one of those just can be a little hard. Last month. And I know it looks like I'm almost like about to like scratch my neck. So, but it is like I'm actually making that like I am kind of pointing towards, and be careful, please, if you're close to your face, because you can actually do that. I have done that before where I was doing last month and I misangled where my pointer finger was and I did like scratch myself on the neck doing it. Yeah, that actually happens often in ASL more than you realize. You can have, if you have long nails, watch out because you could really do some damage. It's very common. So, last month. Okay. Next month. So we're going to be back in this position. You're going to go down again and loop it out. Next month. Next month. Next month. So you'll slide down and come up. Next month. Next month. Next month. Okay. This is also one, again, like I said, where you can add those, like you were talking about 2 months ago, it's 2 and then back, but 2 months ago, 2 months later, it's 2 months. You can add that number again as you go down it. Okay. So let's do those 3 again. Our little hot mess of a group right here. We're going to do month. So we had month. Month. Then last month. Last month. Last month. Then next month. Next month. Next month. Next month. Okay. Now let's do our next little group for years or year. Another thing with that is I think I've talked about this, but I'm gonna emphasize it again. The difference between year and years is just a number. So in ASL, there's no difference between the sign for 1 year versus 2 years. It's just you'd add that like for 2, and that's like already understood. You're talking about more than 1 year. So just like to add that. Okay. So the sign for year is going to be, you're going to have 2 fists. Your non-dominant's going to be the base. Your dominant's going to go on top. And then you're going to bring your dominant forward in a circular motion and come back on top. Year. So it goes a full circle. Year. 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 If you're talking about 2 years, you would do the 2 years. 2 years. You can also just do 2 years, where it's like you tap it with a 2 and then just keep with the fist. Either way works. I typically do 2 years, I think. I love how I have to think, because it's like if I'm not saying it in a sentence, I'll be like, oh, I sign it this way. And then I'll sign it in a sentence and go, no, I don't. I do the other way. So that's why I always have to like check. I have to think for how I would sign it. 2 years. If you're talking about last year, there are a few different ways. I'm going to show you the main one that I would say focus on the most, and then I'll just kind of give you exposure to the others, not necessarily for you guys to learn them, just to be like aware of them slightly, like the slightly differences. Okay. So last year's, you're going to have, again, that fist, you'll pat and go back last year. So it's like you don't do the motion, you just kind of pat and go back with the pointer finger. Last year. Last year. Last year. Last year. Now, more, I guess I would say this one is a little bit more like ASL2, ASL3, like more complicated levels. So that's why I'm like, don't worry about this one, just so you're aware if you saw it in person. Last year. It's like a flicking of the pointer finger bouncing back and forth. It's that motion they'll do 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that kind of thing. Don't worry about that one. Just know that if you see something kind of similar to this, they may be probably talking about the years in the past. But for you guys, I would just focus on last year, 2 years, 3 years ago. That kind of one. Okay?
Question.
Then, yes.
So since we have like specific signs for like 100 or 1,000, are there specific words for century, millennium, things like that?
I think it would just still be, because I'm trying to remember, I've
Would
always
you
ever
just do the
done,
number and then the year? Okay.
yeah, 100 years, 1,000 years, that kind of thing. I'm trying to think, there probably could be some location probably would have something for like century or a millennium, those sort of things. But I think the general census would be 100 years, especially because that
Okay.
C, that 100, I think would apply. But I'm having to think
All right.
on that. Okay. And then our final one, next year. Okay. Similar to last year. So you're going to go pat on the fist and go forward. Next year. Next year. Next year. Next year. Okay. I know this is a lot of signs in one class too. Like I said, we try to start basic and very not too stressful in the beginning, but then once we get to like the meat of it, there's a lot of signs. Okay. So let's do our 3 for years again. So we had the sign for year itself. So year, year, year. Then we had our last year, last year, last year. And then next year, next year, next year. Okay. How is everyone feeling right now? I know time can be kind of one of those hard ones. It's okay. It's totally, if you guys are like, oh, I get it. Or some of y'all, I know, are probably like, oh, this is so easy. What is she talking about? Everyone is different. So, okay, let's see. Now we're going to do, oh, these are always good ones to have. I'm going down our little list and I have to go to the side so I can always check. We're going to do a few of these, and then I think we're going to try to move on to family, just the basics of family, if that's okay with you guys. I think just to kind of touch that a little bit, and then if we have time, we'll leave it open for any specific type of family members you guys are curious about. All right. So let's do the sign for night. Okay, so for night, it's going to be a non-dominant is a fist, and your dominant hand's going to come on top. Night. Night. So if you wanted to say good night, you're going to do the sign for good, which is going to be non-dominant palm up. Dominant is going to be at your mouth, and you're going to go good. And bring them on top. Good. And you want to make sure you do place them on top of each other. Good. Good. So good night. good night or night. Sorry, I do that because that was me just being a little lazy. I'll admit that. Good night. So we had our night. Let's do our morning. If you were going to do good morning, that sort of thing. So we'll start with our morning. Morning is going to be your non-dominant hand is going to go right above like your elbow crease in your dominant hand. And you're going to bring your dominant hand up. Morning. 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 So good morning would be good morning. Good morning. Now, there's a very shortened version of this one I am going to show you guys because it's a lot nicer. It's a lot more helpful because good morning is a very big one. You know, you have to use both hands and everything. And if you're trying to be the flair for dramatics, definitely go for it. But if you're just trying to do a basic little good morning, good morning, good morning, that sort of thing, there's a smaller, simpler version for it. And it's going to be, you're going to start here at the base of your chin and you go, good morning, good morning. So you completely have gotten rid of your non-dominant hand. You are just one hand.
I'm going to tell y'all something. If Gillian had let me loose last year, year before, like in her school, I would have been the laughing stock because I was making these huge gesture. And, you know, and when she showed me what it really looks like in class, I was like, oh, Gillian. It would be like if I went to Spain and said, hola. You know, I mean, come on now.
Look, I did the same thing though. Okay,
I know better now.
Well, see, look, at least I warned you beforehand. Okay, I did my internship at my school and I came in the first day, nervous as can be, but like wanting to make a good impression and making these big good morning to like everybody I walked past, you know, because I'm trying to be friendly. And they would just be like, good morning, just a little small, like, good morning. And I'm just like, good morning. And I'll never forget the awkwardness of like, I had a backpack on, I had like textbooks in my hands, and I saw someone and I went, oh my gosh, how do I say good morning? And I remember I was like, good, like with the book in my hand, good morning. Like I made it the most awkward way possible. And then I finally realized I could just say good morning. And I just was like, I made a fool of myself. So, you know, there is that. That's why I try to be like, hey, this is also good morning. A nice little simple one. Good morning. And this one is more like, I see it more for like professional, like when we're talking like a big professional event or like even like a play or anything, kind of like when we have like events like going on like the auditorium. I see a lot of people do this because they'll be like good morning, like they make it different, make a more bigger deal, that kind of thing. So that's where I see that one a little bit more, but the typical like basic like simple version is just good morning. Good morning. Okay. So let's go back through the three we did here. Night, morning, and good. We'll add that all there. And then we'll move on to family, okay? So we had our night, which was night, night. I know I kind of keep curving on it. I don't know why I'm doing that. Just night. And this one you typically kind of have lower. I know I'm having it up high so you can see it. So don't worry about trying to have it close to your face. It's more like lower about like chest level kind of deal. Night. Then we had morning. So morning. I know. There's like there's yeah. There's like a not nice emotion that I know a lot of people we've seen before where someone just is like rudely. Yeah, it's not that way in ASL. Morning. Then we had our good, which was good. So good night. And then good morning. And our fastest little, yeah, good morning. Good morning. Okay. So let's now move on to our family signs. All right. We're going to kind of do the main core of the family. And if we have time, add
Question real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, so like good night, is that the same as good evening? Like if you were greeting somebody in the evening, or is it saying like good night as in hope you sleep well or you're going to bed or something like that?
Both.
Okay.
Depending on the time of evening, I know that sounds crazy, is you could use more of a good afternoon, which is like afternoon. It's like basically your hand and you kind of tap on the end. More so it's like this. This is just kind of the lazy way. So good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon, kind of good evening, that sort of thing. But you can also just do the good night. That can be saying good night for bed or just saying like, oh, good night, like that kind of thing. Okay, so the first time we're gonna do for family, for our family members, is our family. So family is gonna be 2 F's. You're gonna have them together, and then you're gonna make a circular motion where your pinkies end up together. Family, family. And if you guys remember, this was something I mentioned earlier on when I talked about how a group of something or people, the generalized sign for group would be this like open C group. But family, so that F, it's not necessarily like this is where it kind of gets interesting between the differences of ASL and signing exact English, because technically in the sense that's not ASL because it's got the F in it. I mean, it's not specifically ASL, because you would do this kind of thing, but they still use an ASL, the family with the F. Anywhere, even if you go online, they all say it's family like this. So, but that's just kind of that motion of like the group setting. So family. Then we have mom. Mom is going to be a 5. Your thumb is going to go at the chin, mom. Some people will tap at mom. That's not like, that doesn't make a big difference. So if you just do it one time or tap a few times, not a big deal. I've even seen some where they just wiggle their little fingers with it. Yeah, there's just slight variations, but it all means mom. Mom. Then we have dad, and dad's going to be the 5 on our forehead. Dad. Dad. So mom, dad. If you were going to do parents or mom and dad, you would just do mom and dad. Parents, like together. Okay. So then we have our brother and our sister. We're going to start with sister first because that's always how I think of it. Your sister is going to be, you're going to have your dominant in this kind of like the L shape, sideways. I always say it's both hands, but I do end up leaving my thumb down on my non-dominant hand. So like pointer finger and then the L on your dominant hand. You're going to have the back of your thumb go to your chin. So like this, and then you're going to bring it down on top of your non-dominant hand. Sister. 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 Okay. Brother, same exact positioning. It's just now going to be on your forehead. Brother. 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 Okay. Let's do grandma and grandpa. So it's going to be very similar to mom and dad. Now you're going to add a bounce to it. So grandma's going to be mom and bounce out, grandma. And then grandpa is dad, bounce out, dad, grandpa. Goodness me, grandpa, grandpa. Okay, I know we're going kind of fast. Let's pause and go back through these signs real quick. So we had family, family. Then mom, mom, dad, sister, 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 and then brother, brother. Then grandma, grandma, grandpa. Okay. Now on to our next one. So we are going to do the sign for boy and girl. The sign for boy is going to be boy. I think about like the baseball cap, like you're holding the bill of the baseball cap. Boy. And then girl. Girl is going to be your thumb and you're going to go down the corner, like kind of your jaw. Girl. So boy, girl. Now, the reason we signed these right here is because they play into son and daughter. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, there we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to add that boy and the girl with the sign for baby. And that's how you say son and daughter. So for example, son is going to be boy, baby. So boy, baby. So that would be son. Some people will do one like little clip and then curve into it. Either way, boy, baby, boy, baby. Then we have daughter, which is girl, baby. Girl, baby. For granddaughter and grandson, I have seen so many different variations. Some people will do where they'll do like grandma and then they'll do like baby. I've seen some that will just fingerspell grand and then do daughter or grand and then son. It kind of just depends on you guys. I know I was like, oh, I did not just throw signs. It's very different. I see it, it's different every time I talk to someone. I typically fingerspell like them all. I'll just be like grandson or granddaughter. I know that's a mouthful, but I typically fingerspell for those. Okay. Let's see. All right, we're going to add one more, and then I'm going to talk about how you would list your family, like how you would talk about your family, okay? The next one I was going to show you is the sign for twins. I just think that one's always cool. I have siblings who are twins, so I'm always got to like talk about, oh yeah, how you sign the sign for twins. So the sign for twins is you're going to have two, and the number 2. You're going to start in the corner of the opposite side of your mouth, and you're going to go twins. Twins. So you like come down on one side and then the other. Twins. 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 Yeah, I'm trying to think. I haven't seen one for really like triplets. Usually after that, once you get to like the big groups, it's like 3 babies. Like they'll just say 3 and babies. But twins does get its own twins. Okay, let's do those last 5 we had, and then I'll talk about how you would say your family. So we had boy, boy, and then girl, girl. Then we had son, which was boy, baby. And then girl or daughter, girl, baby. And then we had twins, twins, twins. Okay. So, oh, let me add this. I always forget this one. Husband and wife, okay? Because I could see someone being like, well, how would I list them? Let me add these here. Husband and wife, there are 2 ways you can do it. This is another one of those ones where I've genuinely asked people, like I've almost like kind of collected data and been like, how do you sign this? How do you sign it? And they all like flip. One says they do it this way, one says they do it that way. So I'm going to show you both of them. Okay. So the first one for like wife, you can do the first one I'll show you is where you have the pointer finger here at your mouth, kind of like where we did like our sister, but it's just the pointer finger. And you're going to have your non-dominant, this open C, and then you open in hands. So wife, it's like pointer and then open up. Wife, wife. Then husband, same thing, but now at the forehead. Husband, husband, husband. The other way of seeing it sign is you just do wife. So it's just, you take away that whole one, it's just the open C's. Wife, wife, and then husband, 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 husband.
So is this primarily just male in general? Okay.
I was gonna I realized I didn't bring that up. Typically I try to bring it up earlier in. So yes, you're right. I'm glad you picked on that. So you'll notice anytime we're talking about a male, it's gonna be up here around the top of our head. Anything that has to do female wise is gonna be around your chin. That's the same thing for any kind of other relatives. It's just that like the more relatives they have, it just keeps going in that same position. So that's always a nice little trick to help kind of think whenever you're trying to think about a sign for a relative. If you're like, was it this? Is it this or this? Like which one's mom, which one's dad? Males are always going to be on top with the head, and then females are always going to be at the bottom where the mouth is. Excuse me. Okay. I was gonna say for the difference between this wife versus this wife, I know it's not a big difference. The reason it gets to be interesting is that the opposite way, so if you say like this is wife, well, I guess it's not really with the wife, it's more with the husband side. So husband and then husband. One of those is also believe. So like your beliefs. So yeah, it gets that's where it can get a little wonky with it. So like for me, how I choose to say sign for husband, wife, and then belief is I go wife, husband, belief. I do the pointer finger for the belief. There's no really right way. So if you did this for belief, it's still going to be belief. the rating that really helps make the difference, so you know what you're talking about whenever someone signs it, is context clues. So you're not gonna someone's not gonna say, well, my belief and I are going out to dinner. You kind of can pick up, oh, my husband and I are going out to dinner. Or like, I believe in the tooth fairy. You're not gonna say my husband, the tooth fairy. That kind of can get, it's those kinds of like the common sense connections, like those context clues come help build it. And so yeah, but I always like to point that out with like belief and like husband and wife. They are very, very similar. And if you ask one person, they may say, oh yeah, no, this is wife and husband, and this is belief. And then you may talk to someone else and they go, no, this is wife and this is husband and this is belief. They literally flip it. So I typically say context clues really makes the impact on that. So, okay, now for our family. When you're talking about your family, it's really important that you list out your family. So you want to think about, and I typically always say your immediate family. If you really need to involve like the big group, go for it, but it gets really complicated. So for me, I have 5 members of my family. So I always leave it as the 5. And when I'm talking about my family, I go my family. So that my, padding my family. And if you notice, I don't do 5 like this, I do this. And I mentioned this, I think, in our first class. This is how you would list something. So if you're talking about going down the line and kind of listing, you would have it this sideways way. So for me, of my 5, I do this. And I typically will start with saying, like, this is my dad. And I'll point like this, my mom. Then I say, this is me. This is my sister. Now, you really do sister, but I always kind of go a little lazy and I'll go sister. And then brother is here. Now, the importance of this is that if you assign position of your person, like your family members, like I'm right here, I'm in the middle, you have to you really want to leave it there. The reason for that is because you can actually use that back when you're having conversations later and talking about it. I've done it a few times actually in class before. And if you kind of watch closely, you may will notice I do it. So like, for example, when we're talking about our different ways of saying day, I had that 5 up here and I had this one assigned as today, now, yesterday, tomorrow, all day. And if you notice, I'd be like, okay, this one today, like now, I made sure to keep it in that same number spot. So it's the same thing when you're talking family. It's really important that you leave them where they are. I like to leave mine in kind of like, not really age order, but a little bit of age order, especially with my siblings and I. I do that and because that way it helps everyone know I'm the big sister, I'm the oldest, then it's my sister, then it's my brother. Even though they're twins, she's still 3 minutes older. So I'm always like, she gets the upper level on that one. So if you guys were going to be talking about your family, I would recommend doing it kind of in your order. So like, let's say you're talking about like your family, not involving like your family as in your parents and your siblings, but you and your husband and or wife and your kids. I would probably do like me as the first one, then my husband here, and then let's say I had 4 kids. Let's say I have 2 kids. So I'd go me, my husband, then my daughter, my son. Okay, like I go down in this order, that sort of thing. And what can help with that is that already determines the age for you guys. So like knowing my daughter's older than my son or things like that. Does that make sense? I know it's really complicated. It's kind of hard to apply and I'm trying to explain it clearly. And I don't have a great list for this one. I have good for my family, but like adding like husband, wife, I'm like, no.
Okay, Jillian. So for me, I would say
Yes. For you. Yes, I had to think for a minute.
wait.
So you would do, okay, so Miss Katie has 4 kids. So she would have the 6. What you would do for this, if you have more than 5, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm right at 5, so I never think about this. You would start with a 6 and then you would open up to the 5. So then I would say this one be you, then your husband, then Evie, Scout, Poppy, and then I would do the 6 here and then do Henry.
Look at you. You did it.
I should know your whole family. I mean, I've known them for so many years. It'd be kind of sad if I couldn't remember the order of your 3 daughters for sure.
So is this the sign for list, or is this just 5 people or
Yes.
5 things?
5 things for sure. The sign for list really is list. It's like you have your hand sideways like this and you kind of tap it like this. That's
Okay.
just the general motion for list. But when you are listing something out, if you're doing like 3, you would do that same motion. Like that just kind of makes the telling of list.
Okay, because it's technically 3 people in my immediate family. So
Mhm.
is this right?
Yes. 3.
Instead of okay.
Yeah. If you don't have like 5 people, you would just do the number for it. I realize that can get kind of confusing because I'm always used to the 5.
Okay,
So
is it gonna throw people off if I would have before you said me, I would have put Doug here.
no, if you put Doug there,
There-
you're in there.
Yeah, just as long as I keep us in our places.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It helps also because like if you get into like the more complicated ways, like for example, when I'm
Y'all don't
talking,
tell Doug I said that.
I won't. I'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. For example, if I'm talking to my like coworkers and we're talking about, or even like my students, and I'm talking about my family, I always list it this way, and then I'll be like my dad, and I'll even like I finger spell their first name, so I'll be like it's Ken, and then I'll be like my mom, Karen, then me, Gillian, then my sister, Maris, Jackson, my brother. I list it like that, and so it helps when you're like talking in conversation, because then I'll be like, oh yeah, like my dad and we agreed, but my mom and my sister were disagreeing. Like it helps to like almost, it kind of keeps them in place. So instead of having to constantly like bring up like my dad or this or my sister this, you can point to help. I know that's very complicated. This is probably more teetering on the ASL like 2 level, but I just kind of want to give y'all exposure for that just a little. So if it's overwhelming, don't worry about that. Just focus on your immediate family. If it's 3, it's this. If it's 2, or even if it's just the 1, you do the 1 and be like me. Very simple. So you can do it that kind of way. If it's any number above 5, you would start with that number. So like, let's say you're a family of like 9, okay? You would start with the 9 like this, then you'd open. And then as you go down, I typically would do this, and then I go to my 6, and that's when I start saying like my other son, my daughter, and that's where I point to this. You can still technically, there's a way where you can add it with your other hand. It gets very complicated, so I typically stay with the number here, like that, keep up the pace of that. So, are there any questions? I know that was a very long, I think a little tedious bit, but does anyone have any questions?
How would you sign like only child? Or like, I don't know if it's more complex, like great grandparents, like how do you go far out or do you finger spell great and stuff like that?
Okay, those are 2 really good questions. The first one I'm going to do is the great grandparents. For that, yes, you would just finger spell great and then go grandma, grandpa. And grandparents is very similar. It's the same thing. It's the bouncing of back and forth. So you would do that great grandparents. The next one for only child, what you'll do is you will be really, if it's like someone's asking you, oh, do you have siblings? And then you would respond like, no, and you would do the only. It's like a pointer finger, and you just make a circular motion right in front of you. Only. That kind of tells the only child. If you're talking, like you're saying, like family of 3, that also will tell them, like if you're like, oh yeah, here's my mom, my dad, here's my mom, there's me, and then you could add that I'm the only child. If you really want to be clear, you could do only and then do the sign for kid. The sign for kid is, I always think you're doing like the rock and roll sign, and you're going to go with the pointer finger under your nose. Kid. This is kid. So only kid. You could do that, but like I said, most of the time context clues really will play with that. So like if someone asks you about, oh, do you have any siblings, things like that, you'd be like, no, I'm an only child. That only. Good question though. Most people don't ask that because I always forget about that.
Cousins, aunt and uncles.
Yes. Okay. We'll go through these real quick. We'll do aunt, uncle, and then our nieces and nephews because they're very similar. So aunt is going to be an A, corner of your mouth in a circular motion. Aunt. Then uncle is going to be a U, forehead, circle motion. Uncle. For nieces and nephews, it's going to be an N, Niece is going to be the same position as that aunt. Nephew is going to be up here with the U. And then our cousins, C for boy cousin, C for girl cousin. There is the general cousin, and it's just the C, right? Kind of like where your ear is, and it's cousin. If it doesn't like matter, you know, if you're not, it doesn't make a big difference to like your conversation or whatnot. If you're talking about a boy cousin, girl cousin, you're just saying cousins, you can always go here, that basic C, cousins. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All righty. Perfect. Okay. I always have to check. Sometimes I see people's hands moving. I'm like, are you trying to unmute yourself? Are you just moving? I always have to check. All righty. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of y'all's week. And I will see you guys all next week. We will, I don't know what next week is. Is it food? No, it's not.
I
can't
think it might be, we'll do our WH question words.
Yes, that's right.
And then I'll have to look and see what else is on the list.
Mhm.
But yeah, be on the lookout. When I email everybody the link to this class, I'll include next week's worksheet in advance. So we all have it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Y'all have a great week.
You didn't send out the quizzes, did you?
No, I didn't do any
Okay.
quizzes. No.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Have a great one.
All righty. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.